2% of the cells that carry signals out of your eye have nothing to do with vision. They're designed for something completely different. They contain a pigment called melanopsin, and their only job is to tell your brain what time it is. That's one of two completely separate ways that your body reads light. The second one happens under your skin, and it changes how much energy your cells can make. By the end of this video, you'll know how to use both and why the timing matters more than the standard advice would have you believe. Get sunlight in your eyes in the morning. Open the door, go outside. You've heard it, I say it constantly, and I'm going to keep saying it. But why? Here's why. In 2002, two labs, David Berson's at Brown and Seymour Hatter's, found a set of cells in your retina that responds to light on their own with no help from the rods and cones that you see with. They carry melanopsin and they wire almost entirely to your brain's master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is right above where your optic nerves cross. Their job isn't to build a picture, it's to answer one question for your brain: how bright it is right now. That one answer runs your entire day. These cells peak at 480 nanometers, the deep blue of the open sky, so a bright morning hits them the hardest. When it does, cortisol climbs to wake you up and your core temperature starts its daily rise, and a timer starts that releases melatonin 12 to 14 hours later. So the light that you catch at 7 in the morning is what decides when you get tired tonight. If you miss it, that whole schedule starts to slip. Now, here's the catch, and it's why the advice fails the moment you step indoors. This system was tuned to outdoor light, and outdoor light is far brighter than it feels. A bright room, like this one, is maybe 300 lux. A gray day outside is 2 to 10,000. Direct sun is past 50,000 lux. Your eye hides that gap from you because it's built to make any room look bright enough. Your clock isn't fooled by bright enough. It counts photons. So a day spent indoors reads to your body like a long, dim, endless dusk. And a body that never sees real day never gets a clean signal for a real night. When Kenneth Wright's team took people camping with nothing but sunlight and firelight, their internal clocks shifted almost 2 hours earlier in a single week, and the gap between the night owls and the early risers nearly closed. The only thing that changed was the light that they stood in. Nothing was wrong with their internal clocks at home. They were just reading a far fainter signal than the one they were built for. Only a slice of what the sun sends to you is visible. About half the energy in sunlight arrives as infrared, light that your eyes can't register, but your body still absorbs. It sinks into your skin, and on a bright enough day, some of it passes clear through your entire hand. Modern life deprives us of this feature. Firelight and old incandescent bulbs make light by getting hot, so they carry the full warm tail of red and infrared. LEDs make light a different way. They lean hard on blue and give you almost nothing past deep red. Glenn Jeffries' group at UCL has spent years measuring what that costs to us, and the wavelengths our mitochondria respond to turn out to be the exact ones that our screens and ceiling lights leave out. Efficient modern windows filter out more of it still. In one of their studies, a few minutes of deep red light lowered the rise in blood sugar after a meal, which tells you the effect is real and measurable. Your metabolism is answering a color of light that you have been living without. So a day indoors isn't only dimmer than a day outside. The spectrum is wrong too, stripped of the infrared that your cells were built to use, which sets up the second system, the one that reads light as fuel. The eye isn't the only tissue that answers to light. The second response has nothing to do with time. It happens under your skin in the part of the cell that makes your energy. Red and near-infrared light, roughly 600 to 900 nanometers, passes into the tissue underneath your skin and meets cytochrome C oxidase, the last enzyme in the chain that your mitochondria use to turn food and oxygen into ATP, the fuel that every cell you have runs on. And light changes how that enzyme works. Tina Karu spent years showing that this enzyme absorbs that light. Michael Hamblin's review mapped what happens when it does. Under stress, a molecule of nitric oxide clamps onto the enzyme and slows it down, like a foot resting on a brake. The right wavelength knocks that nitric oxide loose. The brake lifts, the enzyme speeds up, and the cell makes more energy. So the sunlight that you feel as warmth on your skin is a few millimeters down, literally raising your metabolism. Now, there's a difference in the strength of some of this evidence. That this enzyme absorbs red light and speeds it up is subtle. They can do that in any lab. That shining a light on your head reliably sharpens your thinking is real, but younger and thinner. The early placebo controlled work from Barrett and Gonzalez Lima, a near infrared laser on the forehead, shows gains in attention and working memory. And the field has grown since, but hasn't yet reached the density that you would want before, making outcome promises. The mechanism is solid, but the human dosing is still being worked out. And red isn't the only thing that your skin does with light. Ultraviolet, the part that we're trained to avoid, has an upside that the vitamin D story entirely leaves out. Richard Weller's group at Edinburgh showed that UV on skin releases nitric oxide from a store your body keeps there, and that nitric oxide widens your blood vessels and lowers your blood pressure on a path that has nothing to do with vitamin D. Blood pressure runs higher the farther you live from the equator and higher in winter, and this looks like part of the reason. None of that erases the skin cancer risk of too much sun, but it makes ultraviolet a real trade-off where the dose is the entire conversation. Put the skin together and it's a light reading organ all day long. The same morning and midday sun that you're already chasing to set your clock is handing your skin the red your mitochondria use and the ultraviolet that moves nitric oxide for absolutely free. These two systems, the clock and the mitochondria, meet in a single molecule, and it's one that you already know: melatonin. You know melatonin as the sleep signal. When light drops, the clock lets it rise, and that rise tells your body that the day is done and it's time for bed. That part is settled. Again, we can test it in any lab. What the last 15 years has added is a second job for the same molecule. Alton Brown and nature hate a single tasker. Russell Rader's group built the case that melatonin is also an antioxidant that concentrates inside your mitochondria, far higher than in your blood actually, sitting right where the energy chain throws off its unavoidable exhaust. There's a bolder idea still being tested that the mitochondria make their own melatonin, a relic of the bacteria that they descended from, with a 2017 PNAS paper giving the first direct hint. The origin is still an open question, but the protective role is on solid ground. So if you line those things up, the same molecule that your eyes schedule for the dark is stationed inside the very engines that daytime light tunes up. Light runs the machinery by day. Darkness releases the sleep trigger at night. The sun's presence and its absence are two halves of one instruction, and you are built to receive both. There's a more interesting idea at the edges of all of this, and it has to do with the molecular structure of water and how it interacts with light. Gerald Pollack's lab at the University of Washington argues that water has a fourth phase beyond solid, liquid, and gas, a structured gel-like layer that forms against surfaces, and your cells are packed with surfaces. What pulls it into this conversation is his finding that light, infrared especially, builds that structured water. If he's right, light has a third way to act on you, not only timing your clock and charging your mitochondria, but organizing the water your biochemistry runs on. And the ground here is solid. The exclusion zone, where a structured region forms against a surface and pushes dissolved particles away, has been reproduced in labs well beyond his own. What's still being worked out is how far it reaches, whether this is a true fourth phase doing real work inside of living cells, or a known effect in a new context. Either way, your cells are full of water and infrared reaches it and affects it. The sun hands your body two things at once: a timing signal read at your eyes and an energy signal read under your skin. Your body evolved expecting both in set amounts at set hours. That's what it means to treat light as a nutrient. It's an input with a dose and a schedule, so the same as food. Nearly every lasting culture built life around the sun. Dawn and dusk practices, work that track the daylight, festivals on the solstices, and the old instinct to face east in the morning as the sun rose every day. It's easy to file all of this under superstition, but those cultures ran an unplanned experiment across thousands of years, and they landed on the exact schedule chronobiology now recommends: strong light in the morning, movement through the day outside, darkness protected at night. They didn't have the word melanopsin, but they had the result regardless. So think about how old this entire mechanism is. Before there were eyes, there were molecules that changed shape when light hit them. The sun was the first external signal life ever had to organize around. Older than nervous systems, older than brains, far older than us as humans. Every clock in your body descends from that first negotiation between a cell and a star. Stepping into morning light is rejoining the oldest conversation there is. Which is why the mystic and the mechanist keep meeting in the same place, but from opposite directions. One says the sun is sacred and builds the day around it. The other says photons entrain the master clock and builds the day around that. It's the same sun, the same schedule, and the same result. The only thing that changed is the vocabulary. Now, here's the part that most protocols will skip. None of this works in the same way for every single person. Your chronotype, whether you run early or late, is real and partly written into your genes. A study of nearly 700,000 people turned up hundreds of gene variants that tilt someone toward morning or evening, and the one researchers keep returning to sits in a clock gene called PER3. So if mornings feel brutal and you come alive at night, that isn't only a discipline problem, part of it is inherited. The freeing part is that genes set the tendency and light sets the actual schedule. Even a strong night owl leaning bends earlier when the mornings are bright and the evenings are dark. Your genes deal the hand, but using light actually plays it. The evening side is where the differences get dramatic. When Andrew Phillips' group measured how much evening light it takes to cut melatonin in half, the average landed under 30 lux, but the spread between people was more than 50-fold. One person barely reacts to bright light at night at all. The next is knocked off schedule by a dim phone. You don't know which one you are until you test it, and that alone is reason to run your own experiment instead of trusting any generic number. The far end of this carries the most weight. The World Health Organization's Cancer Agency lists long-term night shift work, the most extreme version of light at the wrong time, as a probable carcinogen on strong animal and mechanistic evidence. That's a hazard flag on chronic circadian disruption, not a verdict on your bedside lamp, but it points to the same way everything here does. Your body treats the timing of light as information about when to repair and when to run, and it would really rather you not contradict it every night. So here's what you do in order of how much it buys you. 1. The highest leverage minutes of your day. Get outdoor light in your eyes within an hour or two of waking. No sunglasses. 5 to 10 minutes on a bright morning, 15 to 30 on an overcast one, because even heavy cloud cover clears the threshold that your indoor lights never will. Actually outside, leave the house, not through a window, since glass strips out some of those frequencies. If you do one thing from this video, make it that one thing. If you live far from the equator or have brutal winters where there simply isn't morning light for months, a 10,000 lux light box for 20 or 30 minutes after waking does the same job. And a sunrise stimulating alarm can stand in for the dawn that your latitude won't give you. 2. Keep your daytime bright and get real sun on your skin when you can. The contrast between a bright day and a dark night is the entire signal, and a dim day erases it as surely as a bright night does. Midday sun is also where you collect the infrared and nitric oxide effect from earlier. A walk at lunch counts 3 times over. 3. Treat red and near-infrared devices as optional. Sunlight and even old incandescent bulbs carry these wavelengths, so a dedicated panel is a fun experiment to run on yourself if you're curious. And the only caveat is, make sure to log your variables and your results, because our perception kind of twists those things in the middle of an experiment. As an easy switch, swap a few of your LED lights for warmer, fuller spectrum bulbs, because it's a cheap option and it uses the same idea. 4. Protect the dark, and protect it harder if you're sensitive. In the last hour or two before bed, warm and dim your lights and drop the brightness on your screens. Remember the 50-fold range. If you lie awake at night after a bright evening, you're probably on the sensitive end, and dimming aggressively will do more for you than any supplement off a shelf. If you work nights, flip the logic on purpose. Bright light to hold yourself awake on shift, and true blackout, mask, and curtains for daytime sleep. 5, run the experiment on yourself. No one can hand you your own numbers. Move your light around morning and night, watch your sleep and your energy for 2 to 4 weeks, and let your own data tell you what's best for your body. So, light isn't just something that you can see by. You read it two ways at once, as information at your eyes and as energy under your skin, and both run on the sun's schedule. Modern indoor life didn't take the light away so much as flatten the schedule. Bright days and dark nights blurred into one kind of dim middle ground, and the schedule is the part that you can put back, starting now.